Hi, developers. Today, we're diving into an essential topic for any ASP.NET Core developer: routing. We'll explore what routing is, how it works, and how to create custom routes to make your web applications more flexible and intuitive. So, let's get started. First things first, what exactly is routing in ASP.NET Core? Well, routing is like the GPS of your web application. It maps incoming requests to the right controller actions, ensuring users reach the correct page or API endpoint. Think of it as the behind-the-scenes traffic cop, directing traffic smoothly through your web app. When a user types a URL, the routing engine analyzes the pattern of the URL and decides which controller and action method should handle the request. Let's start with conventional routing. This type of routing was defined in the program.cs file when we created the project in Visual Studio. Or, some projects will have it in the startup.cs file. Here's an example. In this example, we have a default route pattern of controller equals home/action equals index/ID. This means if no specific controller or action is provided in the URL, it defaults to the home controller and the index action. So when we run the project, by default, it will go to the /home/index page. If you want the users to see another page by default, let's say it's the blog page, then you can change this part of the code to the blog controller. Now, you might have noticed the question mark behind the ID. So, what does it mean? It means that the ID is an optional parameter. If we remove the question mark, it indicates that the ID is required in the URL. When we run the project, we will get the page not found message. Because an ID is required, but we did not enter an ID in the URL. Since this is the default URL when starting the web application, we can set a default ID value. So, by default, it will access /blog/index/1. Now let's talk about custom routes. Why would we need to use custom routes? It's because we want the URL to be more readable. It can be used for SEO optimization too. For example, let's say we have a blog website. When users search for a blog post, the post action in the blog controller will handle it. Typically, the URL would be /blog/post. But you can create a custom route, like blog/year/month/title. This will make the URL more descriptive and user-friendly. So, instead of this kind of URL, which appends the parameters at the back, users will see a cleaner URL like this. When the user types this, it will map to the post action in the blog controller. Now let's talk about routes with constraints. When writing the pattern of the route, you can add constraints for the parameters. In this example, the year and month must have integer values. As you can see here, the year and month are numbers. Let's try to change it to letters. We will see a page not found message. We can also use this pattern to access the same page, but certainly, it's not easy to read. The custom route is a lot easier to read. So this is why the custom route is important in ASP.NET Core MVC. Here are some other examples. Okay, now let's talk about attribute routing. This is an example of attribute routing. It means that we can access this details page by using /info/ID and /details/ID. Let's try it out. Okay, this is working, and this is also working. Now, maybe you have a question. If we just set /info and /details, then will the typical route like /controller/action still work? Let's try it out. In this case, the controller is product controller. As you can see here, the page was not found. We must use /info/ID or /details/ID after adding them here. Of course, if we want this typical URL to work, we can also add it as another attribute route. Okay, now we have added this route. Let's try again. It works. Now, let's not forget about the area in routing. Let's say we have an area called admin, and we will be placing all the admin-related controllers and views here. When we access the URL, the area is in front of the controller, like this one. Admin is the area, home is the controller, and index is the action. That's all for today's video. Let's wrap it up. First, we learned about default routing, then custom routes. Thirdly, the attribute routing, and lastly, the area in routing. I hope it helps. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends and colleagues, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.